The flood was supposed to end it. That was the point. The earth had been corrupted beyond recovery. The Nephilim, those half-divine, half-human giants born from the union of the Watchers and the daughters of men, had consumed everything. So God sent water. 40 days of rain, a year of submersion, every living thing on the surface of the earth, erased. But there is a sentence in Genesis that most readers pass over without stopping. Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, written in 2 parts. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. That is the first part. The second part comes after the comma, and also afterward. 2 words that change everything. Noah's family survived. 8 people. Genesis 7:13 is precise. 8 human beings. That is all that walked off the ark when the waters receded. So how do Nephilim appear again in the texts written after the flood? The question has only a few possible answers, and none of them are comfortable. The flood account gives us the names of Noah's sons, but it does not give us the names of their wives. This is not an accident of history. Names were important in the ancient world. The Book of Jubilees preserves a tradition that Noah's daughters-in-law were themselves of unusual lineage. And it offers one explanation for what happens 3 generations after the flood, when Genesis 10 mentions a man named Nimrod, described in language that echoes the Nephilim. His name was Nimrod. Genesis 10:8. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. That phrase, mighty man, is the Hebrew Gibor, the same word used in Genesis 6:4 to describe the Nephilim. The same word, applied 3 generations after the flood. Nimrod founded Babel. He founded Nineveh. The first empire in the post-flood world was his. Babel was not just an architectural ambition. The story in Genesis 11 is brief, 10 verses, but the ancient tradition surrounding it is vast. The rabbinical sources describe the Tower of Babel as a deliberate act of defiance against heaven. A second rebellion, built on the ashes of the first. The dispersion of Babel scattered humanity across the earth. And with that scattering, the giant clans began to appear, in every direction, in every land. By the time Moses leads the Israelites toward the Promised Land, the territory is organized into named giant clans. The Rephaim in the east, the Emim in Moab, the Zamzumim in Ammon, the Anakim in the hill country of Canaan. These were real populations, real enough that the Israelite spies, 12 men sent ahead to scout the land, came back shaking. Numbers 13 records one of the most psychologically revealing moments in the Hebrew Bible. Moses sends 12 spies into Canaan. They are there for 40 days. When they return, 10 of them deliver a report that breaks the confidence of an entire nation. The people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. And then, verse 33, the line that stops every reader cold. There we saw the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Who was Anak? The name means long-necked, or giant. Their original city was Hebron. Arba fathered Anak. Anak had 3 sons, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, and those 3 sons became the lords of Hebron. The Nephilim had not retreated to the wilderness. They had occupied the most sacred geography on earth, the land promised to Abraham, the city where Abraham himself was buried. Of the 12 spies, 2 did not tremble. Their names were Joshua and Caleb. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." 40 years passed. The generation that trembled died in the wilderness. And when Israel finally entered Canaan, an 85-year-old man named Caleb walked up to Joshua and made a request. He asked for Hebron, the city of giants, and he drove them out. Joshua 15:14. And Caleb drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak, Sheshai, and Ahiman, and Talmai. 3 giant lords of Hebron defeated by an 85-year-old man. But the larger conquest was not over. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the people of Israel. But then comes the verse that keeps the story going. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. 3 Philistine cities. The Anakim were not extinct. They were displaced. Gaza, Gath, Ashdod. The Anakim who fled into Philistia became the warrior caste of the Philistine world, giants with iron weapons, giants with Philistine military organization, giants with a generational grudge against the people who had driven them from Hebron. 300 years after the conquest, this grudge would produce a champion. He came from Gath, the valley of Elah. 1 Samuel 17. And out of the Philistine ranks comes a single figure, a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. 6 cubits and a span, between 9 and 10 feet tall. This was not exaggeration. The ancient world did not exaggerate the size of enemies. It exaggerated victories. And the story of David and Goliath presents the giant not as a myth, but as a military and theological problem that only God could solve. David was not supposed to be there. He was the youngest of 8 brothers. He had no armor, no sword, no military training. And yet, David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts." A stone from a sling. 1 throw. The giant fell face first into the valley, but he was not the last of his kind. 2 Samuel 21 records something the story of David and Goliath never mentions. Goliath had brothers, 4 of them, all warriors from Gath, all with Nephilim ancestry. One had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in total. 4 more battles, 4 more giant warriors from Gath. All 4 killed by David's own warriors, men who had learned from their king that giants could fall. These 4 were descended from the giants in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. In the next episode, the Anakim of Canaan, who they were, where they came from, and why the land itself seemed to reject them.